Good morning. It is Thursday, September 10th at around 7:45 in the morning. My name is Larry Cedar, and I'm back with you for another session on what I call scanning, spelled S-Q-A-N-N-I-N-G, completely made up word. It is used to reference the idea of actually scanning, as in scanning your body for very important muscular tension. Scanning, by my definition, is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. Very simple. All we do with this process is try to expand. So let's get into what that means. And I'm a little out of breath, and I'm going to explain to you why and what that has to do with this technique in a minute. But I just worked out, and I'm going to explain how that connects to scanning in a second. This practice is based on the ideas of a man named Thaddeus Golis, no longer living. He wrote a book back in the 60s called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment. In this book, he basically explains the universe, if that's possible. In this small 70-page book, he explains that the universe is basically a struggle between two forces, a struggle or merely an occurrence. The two forces are contraction, squeeze your hands together, see what that feels like? You've just experienced contraction, and expansion, the opposite, release, that's expansion. Everything in the universe is either in a state of contraction or expansion, or, with most beings, vacillating between the two. And he starts by saying that our very body, our very existence is a contraction. The bringing together of cells, molecules, flesh, bone, skin, and then as we advance, a personality, a name, an identity, a career, our possessions. These are contractions. These are the bringing together. And if you've ever heard of the concept of entropy, entropy is the law in the universe where things always tend to expand. Things will always move towards expansion. That's a natural force of the universe that can be struggled against but can never completely be stopped. The universe as we know it is expanding. Even as we are contraction, we are at the same time expanding. We will eventually dissipate into dust when we die. We can't stop that. The forces of entropy are too powerful. We can struggle against those forces by maintaining ourselves, by keeping our identity, by holding on to our possessions, by holding on to our name, our career, our identity, our relationships, our politics, our religion. We can hold on to those as tightly as we want, but ultimately we're all going to just dissipate and turn to dust. That's the forces of entropy. So the forces of contraction are what we experience almost every day. We're always working to hold things, to keep things together. But ultimately, the forces of entropy will win. So it's a very interesting way to look at life, as things either being in a state of contraction or expansion. It's fascinating because it helps you define your very existence. It helps you understand yourself and others. If you look at things and situations and say, is this a more contracted or expanded state of being? And we'll go into that further. So again, scanning is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical and emotional calm. We move as human beings between these two states, contraction, expansion, every day. If you want a balanced, centered life, what I consider a successful life, you want equal amounts of both. So we work very hard in our life to hold on to our ideas, to construct our ideas, our politics, our religion, our physical body, our careers. We work very hard to maintain and hold those things together. But you must also, if you want a balanced life, learn how to let all of that go, to go to a place of nothingness, emptiness, to your true self, where you are not identified by anything other than your mere existence. If you can balance those two, in my opinion, you will be at peace. So, we use the muscles, we use the body as a guide. If we walk around in a contracted state 90% of our day in our life, and we want to balance ourselves, well, how do we bring ourselves into a more expanded state? Well, what I discovered through this experimentation and reading of this book was that the muscles are the perfect metaphor for this contraction-expansion continuum. The muscles can do one of two things: contract, make a fist, or expand, release. They're a binary, what's the word? They're binary. They can only do one or the other, and they can't do both at the same time. So if I learned how to relax and release my musculature, I would indeed be able to bring myself into a more expanded state. You can't contract and expand at the same time. You can't make a fist and release a fist at the same time. Any movement towards expansion moves you away from contraction. So every time you release muscular tension, you are in fact moving into expansion. And the reason I exercise at the beginning of every day is because, like the muscles, it's the perfect metaphor. When you exercise, you exert your muscles, you contract, but because you are working hard, your body leaves you no choice. You must breathe. You are forced to breathe deeply, which is expansive. So exercise is a great way to bring yourself into balance, because even as you are contracting, push-ups, pull-ups, weights, even as you are contracting and making that part of you strong, which is good, you are also forced to expand. Your body won't let you not breathe. And every breath is expansive. So when you are finished working out, in general, you feel more at peace. You brought yourself into balance. So I highly recommend exercising every day. Okay, enough explanation. Let's get started. We start every session with, as I said, breath, because it is expansive by nature. If you take nothing else away from these sessions, then that knowledge, that breathing, can bring you into balance. You will have achieved a lot, and I will be very happy. It's why so many of the self-help, self-improvement techniques like yoga use breathing, deep breathing, as part of the process, because breath takes you into an expanded state. We take deep breaths followed by stillness and silence, because absolute stillness sends a message to your body and thereby your very mind that you have stopped doing. Doing is contractive. We want to stop doing. And we also sit in absolute silence, because words are a contraction. Letters, sounds being brought together. So we stop that. So if you are highly contracted, the mere taking of a breath, sitting in stillness and silence, will immediately bring you into a more expanded and hopefully more balanced state. So let's start by taking a deep breath and sitting in absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle. It sends a very clear message to your body that you have stopped doing. And of course, continue to breathe. Here we go. Deep breath. So you have already begun to expand. You've moved the dial. And again, very important, incremental. Even the smallest expansion moves you away from contraction. You can't expand and contract at the same time. So any amount of expansion moves you towards center. Now it is 7:50. I started talking at 7:45. 5 minutes into this session, I finally stopped talking, or shut up, and sat in stillness and silence. That's my nature. I am very contractive by nature. I think, I talk, I do. I created this technique to help myself. I feel there's a certain universality about it, and so I share it in the hopes that it will help you. But it's important to remember how infrequently we take a moment to take a breath and sit in stillness and silence. That simple act can bring you closer to balance. Let's do it again. Deep breath followed by stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. So it's important to note in this process, as you begin this process, this movement towards expansion, how you feel different. I will speak for myself. I cannot possibly speak for you or anyone else who practices this. I have no idea how you feel. I will share with you how I feel and see if it resonates for you. Whereas at the beginning of this session, I had a compulsion to speak and explain contractions, to fill every moment with words. After taking a series of deep breaths and sitting in stillness and silence, I suddenly was in no hurry to say anything. In this modern world of ours, it's hard to attribute any value to nothingness. It's very difficult to imagine that that matters, that that could have any value. We're so conditioned to contracting, to doing, to thinking, to piling one idea on top of another, to come up with solutions, that the idea of doing nothing seems counterproductive. Because on an existential level, we're always all struggling to merely maintain our existence. Our biggest fear is that we will die and disappear. The idea of letting go of the life raft that are words and ideas terrifies us. The idea of nothingness instinctively feels as though we will sink and drown. So the process of scanning is conditioning yourself to understand and actually experience the fact that nothingness has tremendous value, tremendous value. It can feel wonderful. It can feel enlightening. It can bring you peace and calm and clarity, something lacking in today's world. For me, in any case, nothing gets me in more trouble than when I try to overthink things and try to quote-unquote solve things. What I've learned through scanning is that some of the best solutions come in a state of emptiness. Some of the greatest peace comes to us when we are empty, when we have shed our ideas, our identity, our plans, our thoughts. My greatest moments of peace come in my moments of nothingness. Now that wouldn't seem to make sense. When I've shed everything that made me feel good and important, how could I possibly feel good about myself when I'm nothing? It's simple. When you shed all of these things, you're left with just yourself as a human being. And you feel that you are all right, and you are fine, and you are safe, and it feels good. And you realize that you didn't need to be struggling so hard. When you see that there is a peace beneath all of these struggles, you don't feel as though you have to fight so hard. You can just be. It's a great source of peace and clarity. So, as I said, part of training and scanning is reconditioning yourselves so that you understand that nothingness has equal value to something, so you can find balance. You don't want to live here. You have to live in this world. You have to work. You have to speak. You have to make things. You have to build things. You have to have an identity. It's very important that we navigate this world through this creation of who we are, what we are. It's essential. But you want to find balance by experiencing at least a couple times a day that without any of that, you're still fine. In fact, maybe even better. One more deep breath, stillness and silence. If you find that sitting in stillness and silence makes you uncomfortable, and that's all right, it does me. I developed this technique to help myself. If you find yourself confused, threatened, frightened, bored, anxious, agitated by the act of sitting in stillness and silence, well, that's a sign of how deeply invested you are in contraction, how important it is to you, how afraid of it you are to let it go. So I always take my resistance to this process as a sign that I'm on the right track. You might try that as well. I feel tremendous resistance when I start to scan. I want to keep contracting. I don't want to let go. That's my nature. But the further you move along this continuum towards expansion, the more you'll begin to instinctively feel and understand that this is a very valuable process. And when you get to an expanded state and see how calm you feel and how clear you feel and how relaxed you feel, for me, I realized it's what was missing in my life. That there was another solution. And that's why I've invested so much time and energy into this process and sharing this process. I don't like to talk about scanning except here in these sessions. Like Fight Club, the first rule of scanning is don't talk about scanning because these are words, descriptions. I feel it's essential for these training sessions, as I call them, for sharing the technique. But if I was to encounter you somewhere and you said, Larry, let's talk about scanning, I would say, I'd rather not. Why don't we just sit in stillness and silence for a moment? I know that sounds weird, but that's where the solution lies. Not talking about it more, but actually talking about it less. Let's begin what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique. We're about halfway through the session. We've started with deep breaths and stillness and silence, these are expansive acts. So take a moment to see, how did that change me? How do I feel different? For myself, I feel less hurried. I feel more comfortable in my chair. I feel less of a compulsion to speak or even continue this session. Once you've come to this place, experience it. Don't try to describe it or write it down or nail it down. Just let it be. But let's continue. Incremental release of muscular tension. The muscles are the perfect metaphor for this contraction-expansion continuum. Muscles can either contract or expand. By letting go of muscular tension, we continue to move ourselves into a more expanded state. We start with what I call zone 1, which is the face. I say the first because you can see it in the mirror. If you look in the mirror, you can actually see the change. On my count, I want you to release all the muscular tension that you can in your face. 3, 2, 1, and release. Did you feel that? Can you feel the difference between this, squeeze, and this? Do that to your face. 3, 2, 1, and release. Look in the mirror if it helps. 3, 2, 1, and I saw it happen. There's a kind of dumb, droopy look. My muscles stopped trying. I turned off the power to those muscles, and they were given a break. I said, take the moment off. It's amazing when I start to scan. I'm still, after all these years, astounded at how much muscular tension I carry for no reason, completely unnecessarily. I'll be sitting in a chair, and I'll say, take a breath. Try to relax your face. And I'll go, whoa, why was I holding that? Why was I holding my shoulders? Why? It's unnecessary. Even in my sleep, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and I'll start to scan, and I'll go, my God, where did all this come from, all this tension? So we tend to carry around a certain amount of muscular tension that is completely unnecessary. It's exhausting. It takes energy to hold. It takes no energy to release. So if you are new to scanning, begin to explore this process. Begin to explore, where can I let go of muscular tension? Incrementally. Very important. It doesn't have to be a major release of tension. The slightest change from this to this moves you away from contraction. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. I'm going to move through the body fairly quickly for the purposes of this session. When you're practicing, take as much time as you like. Really explore it. Zone 2, the top of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. And ask yourself, did I feel that? If not, it's okay. Just think it. Top of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. If the level of tension, muscular tension in the top of my head is an 8, I'm going to take it to a 7.5. 3, 2, 1, the top of the head, and release. Once you've begun to experience that change, that shift is scanning. That's scanning. From this squeeze to this. And I say, because just letting go. Let's move on. Back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. If you're new to scanning, you might not be able to feel this. You might go, I didn't feel anything. I don't even know what the back of my head feels like. What's he talking about? Stay with it. Or stay with those muscles that you feel you have the most control over so that you can get used to the feeling. I always say the face because it's the easiest. 3, 2, 1, and release. Stay with the face. Infuse your body with release. Infuse your body with release. Savor it. Indulge yourself in muscular release. Find places where you can release. If you can't release your neck, release your hand. 3, 2, 1, and release. See what that feels like. Study it. Bathe in it. Sqanning is the incremental release of muscular tension. That's all it is. To move ourselves into a more expanded state. Simple to learn, challenging to master, but well worth the effort. Zone 4 is the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. And the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. For myself, when I'm scanning, it's basically an argument with myself. I've scanned for an hour and a half in the middle of the night last night. I was so worked up about some issue or other. There's plenty to be worked up about in the world today. And I said, got to scan. I'm tying myself up in knots. And for about an hour, I argued with myself. The contracted part of me said, got to keep thinking, got to keep worrying, got to keep planning, keep thinking. That's the only way out of this mess. The expansive part of me said, no, let it go. It'll be there when you come back. Let go, let go, let go. Muscular tension, let go, let go, let go. About an hour in, that's how deeply contracted I was. My body finally said, oh, I get it. This has value too. This is safe. You're not going to die. You're not going to disappear off the face of the earth. You're just going to go back to your, what I call original self. Just being, nothingness, emptiness, breathing. And then you will feel safe. And you will feel calm. And then you can return to whatever issues you were dealing with a clear, calm mind. And probably a more effective mind. Zone 5 is the shoulders, let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. The neck again, 3, 2, 1, and release. And the shoulders, let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. Continuing with zone 6, the chest, stomach, front of the waist. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, 3, 2, 1, and release. I'm laughing because if someone does happen to come to me and say, can you help me? I want to just try this a little bit. And the first thing I'll say is stop talking, take a deep breath, and sit in stillness and silence. And many times they're like, oh, I can't. I just sit still. What? No, I can't. What do I do next? What is it? I don't understand. What is it? Just don't say a word. Sit in stillness and silence. Try to release muscular tension. Oh no, what? And I say, man, do I identify with what you're feeling right now? I go through the same thing. But again, that resistance is a sign that you have struck gold. You are going up against your very own habitual nature. I've been living on this earth many, many years. Habits are hard to break, but you can do it. You can retrain your body and mind to value the experience of expansion. Silence, stillness, emptiness, release. Once you've begun to understand and value that state, that expanded state, and realize how important it is to bring your life into balance, you will want to revisit it, as I do, again and again and again, as challenging as it may be, because you'll begin to understand that only in a balanced life can we truly succeed. We need both. It's so great to work hard and achieve and to identify and build and collect and hold on to things. It's the stuff of life. The greatest successes in the world, my heroes, knew how to powerfully contract and bring people and ideas and things together to build buildings and to save nations. These are very powerfully contractive people. But I would suggest that the ones that got through that contractive life with any kind of sanity or peace of mind also knew how to let go. Through whatever means that was. And it could be any number of things, some of them better for you than others. Alcohol and drugs are what I call a chemical expansion. They will bring you peace on a momentary basis, but you pay a price. I would suggest that prayer is an expansive process. Many of the very successful people I admire in my life pray regularly. Why? Because prayer basically asks you to let go of your ego, your identity, and to acknowledge a higher power. And that letting go of that identity, that ego, and acknowledging that we are in effect only what we are. We are somewhat powerless, and to accept that and experiencing that can be very expanding and healing, and that brings you back to center. Some people play sports, some people dance. Whatever it is, if you look to very successful people, you'll find that frequently not only are they very effective on a contractive basis, but they also know how to expand, and that can be on a mental level. They can somehow know how to forgive themselves and others, which is expansive, which allows them to continue through their day. Whatever contradictions or hypocrisies they experience, they are somehow able to process that by letting it be and continuing to move forward. They're not stopped. What you're trying to do with scanning is stretch your dynamic range. You want to be able to powerfully contract to succeed in life, to do whatever it is you do, while at the same time also know how to very effectively let go of all of that and bring yourself into balance. Zone 4, again, the neck, 3, 2, 1, release. Zone 5, the shoulders, let them drop, 3, 2, 1, and release, deep breath. Zone 6, the chest, stomach, front of the waist, 3, 2, 1, and release. And don't think about it. Just do it. Focus your attention on that area and then just let it go. 3, 2, 1, and release. You know how to do it. We all know how to let go. We all know how to hold an object and then drop it. That's all we're doing, is focusing on how tightly we are holding a part of our body and then deciding to let it go. Certain areas are more readily accessible than others, depending on you, your body, and how long you've practiced or have the capacity to control your body in this way. But the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. Zone 7, down the back, past the waist and into the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. I always say the pelvis is a very powerful muscular area to release because we spend a lot of time clenching the pelvis. It's the area of sexuality and waste elimination, two very sensitive areas in terms of embarrassment, control, desire. It's a very sensitive and very, you might say, loaded area. There's a lot going on emotionally and physically in that area. So when you release muscular tension in the pelvis, it can be frightening, it can be uncomfortable, but it also pays great benefits because, again, the greatest areas of resistance are the most effectively released. When you release one part of your body, it affects all parts of your body. So work on the areas that are most challenging and you will reap great benefits. The pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, 3, 2, 1, and release. 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. And finally, zone 8, down the legs across the knees and into the feet. Think about your feet for a moment. On my count, try to release 1% of the tension, the muscular tension in your feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, 3, 2, 1, and release. The feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. Again, I'm moving through these much more quickly than I normally would for instructional purposes. What I would like, excuse me, for anyone visiting these sessions to take away from these sessions is a general sense of what it is to let go, to release. In particular, the muscles, but in general, your very perspective. Release, let go, let go, let go. Deep breath. The more frightened you are, the more tense you are, the more uncomfortable it makes you, the more you can pretty much assume that you are up against your own contractive nature. So don't take fear or discomfort as a sign to stop. Take it as a sign to proceed. I've had many a great war with myself because I kept wanting to stop. It didn't feel good. It felt uncomfortable. It felt risky. It felt, and I should touch on that, when you begin to scan, you do frequently begin to have emotional release, which can be frightening for some people. Reason being, every feeling you've ever had must pass through you. If that feeling scares you, you will stop it and hold it because you don't want to experience it. Feelings never go away until they are released. Feelings you have from when you were 5 years old are still in there if they weren't released. This is one of the values of therapy, is that it gets people talking about their experiences in the past, as painful or as uncomfortable as they might be, and they are allowed to get in touch with, as they say, and ultimately release those feelings. If you've been holding on to uncomfortable feelings, the effort taken to hold on to those feelings uses a lot of energy and restrains and constricts you. And it causes you to act in irrational ways in life, because that feeling will guide you in your effort to protect yourself. You will see something that reminds you of that feeling, and you will not just see it for what it is, but see it for something connected to this, and you will not perhaps deal effectively with that issue. So as you begin to let go through muscular release, feelings are released. They can be anything. If you can trust that released feelings are safe and harmless, you can let them go, experience them, because that's how feelings are released, when you experience them. You allow them to be experienced. If you can let that happen, you will have freed yourself that much more. And you will be, again, freer to operate in the world more effectively, more openly, more honestly, more calmly, more in a more kind manner. So feelings are part of the expansive process. When someone says, keep it together, what do they mean? Hold on, keep it together. And there's times when you do need to keep it together. Feelings aren't always appropriate for certain situations. That's fine, as long as ultimately you understand that they will have to be released at some point if you want to bring yourself into balance. So that's scanning. I do these sessions, and I leave them up for a while, and then I delete them. And I do them because scanning was developed by me for myself. I invented it, I discovered it, and it's just a variation on a theme that any one of hundreds of self-help techniques have. It's not that different from any of them. It's just the one that works for me. It makes the most sense. Because it really works. And I've devoted thousands of hours to this process. And I will never perfect it, because I'm a human being, and I am contracted by nature, and I am flawed, highly flawed. But I take great peace and comfort in knowing that I have a technique that allows me to balance my contractive nature, my human nature, and it helps me navigate through life more peacefully, more calmly. I don't know how I could live without it, because, we can all get out of balance, and it can be serious. It can be a serious problem. As I said, there's many ways to manage your contractive nature. I sought one that was healthy, I felt. And I share this technique with you because on some level, instinctively, I feel a compulsion to share it because I feel it is of value. And I just hope on some level that it can maybe benefit someone out there who suffers as I do from a contractive nature. Again, not a terrible thing. The reason I achieve what I achieve in life is because I am contractive by nature. It's excellent to work hard, to think hard, to identify as a certain political party or religious party, or as who you are in life, a father, a brother, a sister, a lover, a husband, a wife. These are things we need to do. These are contractions. These are great. But we all need a little help. This is why the liquor shelves in Ralph's are, a block long. This is why so much, alcohol is sold and why so many drugs are sold, because we clearly all we're seeking a way to balance ourselves, because contractive state can be a very painful state if taken too far. So that's all this is a healthy, natural, simple way to bring ourselves into balance. That's all it is. And simple to learn, but I highly recommend you practice. I try to do an hour or two a day. I keep a log just to keep a record of how much I'm doing to motivate myself. I recommend you try to do the same, but if you take nothing else from these sessions, but remembering to occasionally take a deep breath or several and sit in stillness and silence, you will have gone that much further towards an expanded state. That's all this is. And that's it. Once more, scanning is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. Let's go take on the day. Have a good one. Bye.